United Rogue, hope y'all are having a great evening. We are about to kick off with some fantastic Robin Bowl action. But before we get into that, let me first introduce on the desk with me. We got Pi. How's it going, Pi? Hope you're having a good evening.
Oh, happy to be here as always. And like you said, kicking off week one action in style. We had a full slate of games yesterday, and we're looking to get action underway today. We're going to go into Ramen Bowl with a match between Kansas City and Cleveland. Both of these teams, their first games of the season, so expectations a little bit up in the air, but obviously they both prefer to come out of week one with a win.
Yeah, a ton of expectations here, especially on both sides of the pitch. We'll note that Cleveland does feature a very stacked roster by the in the eyes of most people. We got Smooth and Shoelace, who are Ramen Bowl champions 2 seasons ago. They're going to be looking for a big run this season, and this first game is going to be a big stepping stone. Pie. We'll see how they perform tonight, and we'll see if they are able to build some of that momentum their way.
Absolutely. And you look on the side of, well, both of these teams. Well, you've got Kansas City and you've got Cleveland, and both of them, like we said, would prefer to come out of this with a win. Cleveland rocking the triple S lineup with Smooth, Solus, and Star. And on the other side, like you said, Caribou, Cajanator, and Sean. So a lot of familiar faces in this lobby, a lot of people that have been around the league for quite a while. And as soon as these two teams figure out exactly what they've got going on, they're trying to figure out their presets in order to match the in-game colors. I'm surprised they don't already have those figured out beforehand. You know what team you're on, you know what your team colors are, then should kind of have that figured out and ready to go. But as soon as we do, we'll get everybody into the lobby and we'll get this game on underway.
Right then, like you said, a lot of familiar faces. I think I can point out most of these. The one exception is Star, who I think might be a relatively newer player, potentially played last season, but is definitely still a relatively newer player on the pitch compared to the rest of the other five. So he'll be a player I'm looking at for sure. On the other side of the pitch, one of the biggest talking points for Kansas City is Cade Nader. As of recently, did hit rank B plus in 6 mans, which means he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's currently sitting at a 185 cell, and a 185 cell hitting B plus is not a sight you see very often. Nader is certainly one of the players I'm looking at today on the side of Kansas City Pie.
Absolutely. And really it comes down to who's going to have the better start, I feel like, because in a lot of these series, whoever gets off to the hottest start, whoever ends up winning game one, will have to have a little discussion at the end of the season and a little statistical analysis to see who exactly what percentage of the time ends up leading to a series success. But it feels like the sooner you get off on the right foot, the better you are going to position yourself for success in the remainder of the series. So as you move into the start of a series, you don't want to really start slow if you can avoid it. And whoever gets the first goal, I think, is going to have a little bit of setup for success as they go on into game one.
Yeah, that's especially the case with players like Smooth and Shoelace in particular. Really, really momentum based players. We saw that a couple of seasons ago. We saw that, of course, last season had a very solid run to their name. And as we get into this first series, let's talk a little bit of predictions. I know it might be tough to call this early in the season, but what are you thinking of, Pine?
I'm ready to see a game five, honestly, and I'm thinking if these teams match up as well as we think that they might, then we might be able to see something go that sort of a distance as well. But you want to talk about overall winner? I'm kind of hard pressed to bet against this Kansas
Tough
City
call. Tough
squad. I
call.
mean, I think that they have a little bit of an edge when it comes through, but they're having a little bit of difficulty with the lobby colors. So maybe that mental is a little bit not where it should be focused on the series in front of them. So Cleveland might be able to take advantage of that.
I think so. I think I have Cleveland coming out. It does feel like they are the more well-rounded roster, but like I mentioned earlier, we still got to keep an eye on Nader. He has been playing fantastically well over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially in 6 mans, and I think that's going to come in huge. But you still got to worry about Smooth and Shoelace. I mean, these guys have just been together for so long. They've got that built-up synergy over prior leagues. This team is going to come out swinging for sure. And there might be a little bit of a hiccup with Star, who's newer to this roster compared to Shoelace and Smooth. But even then, I feel like I have the Cleveland Cards who are going to be able to take this down. Not even just in 5 games. I think they take it out 3-1 in their favor. But as we get into game number one, we'll see whether or not I'm talking smack or not.
You're right. And honestly, when we get into these kind of higher level lobbies, it's interesting to see exactly what kind of titles and tags that the players themselves carry through. We've got a couple RLCS challengers, one from 2024 and a couple from 2025, and also a CRL contender title in there as well. So you know that these players are capable of playing some pretty high level Rocket League. We'll see what exactly they've got in store for us. This is game number 1 on the way, 5 minutes on the clock. Kansas City versus Cleveland. We'll see who gets on the board first.
Yeah, I've been waiting for some good Ramen Bowl action. This is a fantastic game to kick us off. The Kansas City Carnage are going to be looking to strike early. Like you said, that first goal is potentially series defining. Caribou is looking around here in the midfield. That's probably what he's going to be doing the majority of this series by trying to find some big challenges, set up Shoelace, and especially Smooth, who's been on top the salary roster thus far. So it should be interesting to see how this dynamic works out for the Kansas City Carnage. Right now, we're here into the midfield. A little bit slow, but I think that's to be expected at the beginning of game number 1.
And like the beginning of game number 1, took us 40 seconds to get there, but from one end to the other, it's going to be Kansas City who gets on the board first. After a little bit of a bout of possession for Cleveland in their own offensive third, they had to turn tail and play defense, and it didn't look like they really set up all that well. It's a quick strike from the Carnage. They'll take the lead early as this ball finds its way neutrally through to the midfield. Soul's about to clear this all the way back towards their own side. Cleveland will look to get set up on offense once again as Caribou comes rolling around the corner.
Yeah, Caribou once again called upon for some of those aggressive challenges. We're going to see a lot of that inside the corner, especially from Caribou. Kitchenator as well, he's been playing a little bit passive over the course of game number 1, or at least at the beginning of it, but now he's looking to strike. There's the shot from Cage, and he's going to bury this first goal home. Finds the equalizer, but it was all about the pass here from Sean as he put in some work here inside the corner.
We talk a lot about the high-level Rocket League that we see in Ramen Bowl in particular, and also what comes along with that is just the high pace of play that both of these teams will elect to play with. And you can see right off of the ensuing kickoff, Star wasting absolutely no time. They get that read that they need off of the backboard. It's completely undefended as well. Get that read from the ceiling to the backboard as well. So a lot of the tension being played, not only the individual efforts and mechanics, but also playing at a very high pace leads to a lot of mistakes on both ends of the field.
Oh, and that's a little bit dangerous here. Cage is gonna have to pick this one up inside the box. A little bit tight here for the midfield of the Cleveland Cars. They were all kind of bunched up at the half-field line for a split second. Took a moment to smooth that rotation out in the line. Now looks like they are back in business, and Smooth. Tough spot for him as he came up just ever so short. Didn't quite expect that much pace on the ball, but Star's got to follow up infield towards Smooth once again, who's already got a goal to his name. He's going to be looking for another, but right now it's Shoelace who comes up.
Talk about picture-perfect placement, and as you can see, the ball as it moves laterally across the field causes the defense to shift a little bit out of position. Cajunator comes a little bit too far forward onto that near post. Ball gets played over their head right to the open space on the back post behind them. Allows Kansas City to capture their third goal of this game. And so far, kind of trending in the way that you might have said earlier in the pre-show. Kansas City off to a pretty good start. Cleveland will have to get things a little bit structured more defensively, get a little bit more time in the offensive third, like we see with Cajun here, coming through from the corner, trying to set up a teammate, but not able to get it through that defense.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew this Kansas City Carnage roster would come out swinging, and Star has not failed to impress. I mean, just over and over, he continues to do it. Now a solo play for the second goal off the dribble catch from the left-hand wall. Waste no time in getting this one done. Kansas City, I mean, it's still relatively early in the series, obviously, so you can't make a whole lot of judgment. But this game number 1 speaks quite a lot. And right now it's showing us that KCC are clearly the better offense as far as inside the box pressure goes by.
We might also have expected a little bit more in terms of the overall physical play. You'll kind of see that perhaps at a little bit of lower level gameplay as well, but that can also prove to be very effective in higher level lobbies because you start influencing that pace of play. And that might be something that Cleveland has to take a little bit of advantage of, because as soon as Kansas City looks like they're getting into a little bit of a groove, then they just start scoring goal after goal after goal. We've seen that in the opening half of this game number 1. Now we still got a long series to go ahead of us, but Cleveland gonna have to come up with something a little bit in terms of the drawing board in order to get back in terms of their offensive swing. And what a better way to do that than a full field air carry.
There's rank B plus Cage. We were waiting for him. Talked about him in the pre-show, and finally comes up. No boost, by the way, at the end of that play. So how he's managed to force that in past the last two defenders is truly beyond me. But truly a player to be reckoned with as he cuts that deficit down to 2 goals. But this 2 goals still feels like a mile between these two teams, especially with the offense KCC has had. Can't imagine that they're going to let this one slip by. They're going to continue this offense. Add on to here Shoelace over towards the midfield. Finds Smooth and does find the backboard as well. That's going to open up the offense a little bit more for KCC as they've been able to connect time and time again Pie inside the box.
Really feels like 2 goals is kind of almost insurmountable the way that Kansas City's been able to move the ball up and down the field almost at will against this Cleveland defense. And if they get one more back, then I think we can start talking a little bit more about a comeback opportunity for the Cards. But given that they spent a lot of this time on defense, they really haven't been able to flex their offensive muscles, I think, as much as they would like. Now, they've taken chance and taken advantage of the opportunities in a limited capacity that they've had. Just need a little bit more of them.
Now Caribou is getting involved here, trying to get that one towards the backboard. Did potentially see an opening on the bottom left of the net, but the angle was pretty tight, very small window to make that one. So Cleveland is going to have to take another look at it for now, but Shoelace is there to disrupt the play. Now Sean looking for Cage. Cage has a little bit of boost to work with, but he's got a lot of ground to cover here inside the corner, and I don't know if he's going to be able to break out in the next 30 seconds or so. Maybe up to Sean and Caribou to figure it out, but they are running smack out of time.
And Solus looking to combine to get something to go through in the waning moments of game number 1. Cajanator ducked out by Smooth at the last possible moment before that ball entered the offensive third. Now it's Star, limited boost in the tank, can play this all the way down. And with a multi-goal lead in the closing seconds of game number 1, it's looking more and more likely that Kansas City will walk away from this one as we enter 0-second time. Cleveland may have one more opportunity, but they'll have to go end to end. Sean to Cajanator, not able to get on the end of it, and Kansas City will be the benefactors of a pretty good start in this series.
Yeah, it was all about repeated pressure here for Kansas City. I mean, the second they got past the half-field line, is not a team that gives up possession relatively easily, Pi, and we saw that over the course of game number 1, especially when they're able to poke a hole into that backboard. They were just able to punish again and again, and you got to give the flowers to Star this game. I mean, we saw the solo play off the left-hand wall to find that third goal. I want to say it was the flick for the third goal, and that's when you kind of knew this is going to be a game in the favor of Kansas City, but there are some signs of life for Cleveland, so I won't discount them just yet, Pi.
Absolutely. When we take a look a little bit at the advanced statistics as well on the bottom of your screen, Kansas City leading by a pretty wide margin in terms of the overall ball possession, but the field domination is a little bit closer than I think the run of play would otherwise indicate. And look at some other stats as well. The average speed, it's close across the board, but Kansas City does have that edge. They are playing just a little bit faster than Cleveland. And I think that's especially evident when we looked at how well Kansas City was able to rotate and control their pace of play on the offensive end.
True. I think it honestly would have been a lot different per se. I think that the discrepancy would have potentially been wider if Kansas City didn't find themselves kind of clumped up in the midfield time a little bit here and there. It was not a whole lot, but just the small moments were enough to bring that statistic down. But I don't think that's going to be replicated here in game number 2 for sure. Looks like Kansas City are going to bring the pedal to the metal. That is a ridiculous touch from the corner. Just goes to show you what this KCC roster has up their sleeves.
So it took 40 seconds for the first goal to go through in game number 1 to the benefit of Kansas City. So like we said before, you get off to a good start and things end up usually going your way throughout the course of a series. So if Cleveland's able to get on the board first, that might speak to a little bit of a difference in terms of how Kansas City has to approach the game, because I haven't really seen them be challenged in such a way where they have to end up playing from behind. That usually shifts their play style just a little bit. But nothing coming through the door just yet for either of these teams. Cajanator with possession in the midfield. It's taken away off of their car and going all the way down the field. John's going to go swing wide and then eventually address this ball all the way back to the far side for Cajanator. Caribou not ready for that ball, and they didn't really have a lot of boost to address it either. And Solus having an opportunity, it was open if they could have wrapped their car around it, but fortunately for Kansas City, they're going to have to turn tail and play a little bit of defense.
they're holding on for now, but that's not going to last very long. That is a ridiculous shot from Sean as he's able to thread the needle beneath the last defender. Really tough spot for Star here, trying to get control into the corner. Potentially saw Smooth and was looking for Smooth to take control, but it didn't quite pan out that way. Opened the pass for Cleveland, and they were able to strike first, which is a big change compared to that game number 1, where they spent most of it, trailing, or they were equal for a little bit, but for the most part, we're trailing. First time this series they've had a lead pie.
And I think that's something that they're going to have to address, this Cleveland team, because 50% of their goals in game number 1 came off of individual plays and great reads off of the backboard like we've seen Cajanator do. But team plays are going to be essential, like what we saw in the first goal that Cleveland was able to score. But I mean, you take advantage of your opportunities when you get them. So whether it's individual play or team play, as long as they go in the back of the net, I don't think you really care that much.
That's fair. And there's something to be said about Cleveland Card and their ability to just make it work despite not necessarily putting up the same level of passes that KCC is able to. Cage, of course, trying to hero play this one off the backboard a couple of moments ago to find that second goal. So he's been a huge player to look at, and we kind of knew that, obviously, but nevertheless, it's been impressive to see how much he's improved over the course of the last couple of weeks. He's going to be looking to put it all out here in this series. And speak of the devil, he's going to have some possession here inside the corner. Turned away, now it's Star. Oh, that's also blocked out just outside the box, courtesy of Caribou. So, for right now, Cleveland is going to hold on to this 2-goal lead, but I dare say it looks a little bit fragile, Pi. What do you think?
After the opening flurry from Cleveland, Kansas City had an opportunity to get their legs under them. They had a little bit of a bout of possession, but again, it's Cajanator rearing their head and taking advantage of space in the midfield. So it's a little bit too far back, but as the last defender, there's not really a good space for them to be in, other than on the goal line. And unfortunately, a little bit too much pace right over the top. Cleveland gets their 3rd goal in a row. So after a relatively quiet game number 1, they've responded in kind. Even though Kansas City still has that edge overall in terms of the overall speed, they're finding themselves not in the positions that they were in game 1.
Yeah, it also helps that everything Cajanator touches right now just turns to gold. I mean, every shot he's been able to delete into the back of the net. So that's been a positive for the Cleveland Cards. And now they've got even more time here just past the half-field line to take control. K just got no boost, so he's going to have to let that one go. Luckily, neither does KCC. They're all running pretty much on fumes right now, with the exception of Smooth, who's used pretty much all his boost to kind of get past the half-field mark. But the thing is, Kansas City slowing down a ton here inside this offense, or inside the half-field line. Not really what we saw in game number 1. We're able to pick up the pace of play once a bit, once they got inside the box. Just not really been the case in game number 2, and you gotta imagine what's changed. It might be Cajanator.
It might be, and it's just the overall quality of play from Cleveland has been noticeably higher than what they had in game number 1, but there's really not a whole lot you can do in these ISO 1v1 scenarios, and it's even better when you can bring in a teammate to make it 2v1. Smooth has everything that they need in order to make Sean as uncomfortable as possible in the net, and you just dish it off to a teammate who's roaring towards the net, able to address that with a little bit more pace. So finally, Kansas City gets on the board after having really everything that they could have asked for in game 1. Hasn't really gone their way so far, but they've still got a little bit of time to address this deficit and bring themselves back into it. As Smooth tries to go through off the backboard, it will be just wide. Unfortunately for Cleveland, it looks like Kansas City has a lot of momentum going their way after scoring that goal.
Yeah, and they're hoping for even more, but first they got to contend with this ball inside their half. A really tough spot for them, but they are able to make do for now. And once they're stuck inside this midfield, Cleveland has done well to make sure they stay in the midfield, giving them very few opportunities past the half-field line. Star is going to try to make one happen over to Shoelace, but that's just off the woodwork. Now Cage, no boost, but with the dribble, with possession, Sean does not want to go for this ball just yet, wants to go take control of the corner boost. Potentially the smarter play in this situation, as it prevents KCC from getting a good leg up inside the box once again. Burning precious seconds off the clock, and I don't think KCC is going to find this one back, barring a small miracle.
Rotations, especially for Kansas City, is a little bit too spaced out on the field. Nobody's really occupying that midfield space. And as you can see, everybody on the same side of the field. So when the ball crosses over to the other side, they have to turn and adjust their positioning in order to address the ball. Cajanator able to corral this one and take it away from the near side corner. Everybody kind of not on the same page for Kansas City as they went for a demo, and then the third player for rotation and Star just a little bit too far back to kind of take advantage of that. As time ticks away, looks like it's going to be Cleveland able to bring ourselves back into an equal footing line for this series. And as time does expire with that multi-goal lead, it in fact will be the Cards to take their first game in this series and bring us level after 2 games played.
Yeah, the one thing you're hoping right now for the Cards is that this is not a one-off game. They were able to find a lot of 1v1s, like a ton of 1v1s, especially with Cagenator at the helm, in a spot where he was able to shoot the ball, and he took the shot every time, and he was able to delete it. I mean, we're talking a handful of shots, only 3 shots for Cage, but the fact that he's been so accurate just means that he has that much more of an opportunity to get it home, you know, and Caribou inside the midfield has done super well to set up Cage and Sean a lot of the time. That's allowed Cleveland to kind of get these 1v1s like I mentioned earlier and see if they can punish. But still a difficult strategy to replicate in the future games. We'll see if they are able to do so.
And you can talk about the advanced stats like we did at the end of game number 1, where the possession this time was flipped from Kansas City over to Cleveland in terms of the overall favor. It's a little bit less in favor of them than it was, but there's still a lot of field domination for Kansas City. So they were playing up a lot more outside of their own defensive third, but didn't really bring them a whole lot of success like what we saw from them in game number 1. And the overall speed advantage still does go to Kansas City, but like we talked about, just the spacing on the field wasn't what it necessarily needed to be in order for them to kind of take advantage of that speed differential. And we saw Cleveland be able to kind of carve up that empty space and take advantage of that en route to a game 2 victory.
Right then, game number 3. It's going to be a very tight battle for match point. A part of me thinks that KCC is going to kind of revitalize, and we might see a little bit from that game number 1 magic earlier, but I'm a little bit hesitant to call because a lot of that was Star who was able to set up a solo play and get that third goal rolling for KCC back in game number 1. Once again, a pretty tough thing to replicate, but if they are able to do so, that would be a huge game changer. For right now is that Cleveland Cards who look to start us off on the kickoff, but first they got to deal with this midfield presence from Shoelace. And Smooth as well. Smooth been a little bit silent inside the midfield, but once he gets past the half-field line, like we mentioned, it's just a totally different beast. They've been able to connect on some of these passes with Smooth involved in nearly every single one of them every time. So that just means Cleveland Cards have a little bit extra to keep their eye out for, Pi.
Going back to the point that we made through the 2 games of this series, the team that strikes first goes on to win the game. So it really looks like it's an all-important first goal. Whoever's generating the most offensive pressure seems to be able to follow through with it. Right now, that appears to be a continuation of what we saw in game 2 with Cleveland, but Kansas City's going to have their chance. The Star takes it across the opposite side, going off of the ceiling, wants Smooth in the middle of the field, but they can only run onto it as it rolls up the wall. The attack in danger of dying out as both players are going to have to vacate the field and go grab some boosts on the opposite side. Sean grabbed that corner boost as Cagenator carried the ball over their head. Sean's going to be in a pretty good position for this ball to roll through. Cagenator had all of the work in front of them, almost put it in themselves. Sean with a little bit of insurance, and that first goal will go the way of the Cleveland Cards.
Yeah, great work from Cagenator, especially being able to find that demo inside the corner and nab that corner boost was huge for him in this play. It allowed him to get the momentum he needed to put that one home. And of course, the Cards, like we saw in game number 2, they strike first. A little bit of deja vu. I mean, they were able to run away with the last time and might be able to do so again, but even then, that'd be a surprise. Caribou is going to find a goal here. And this one caught us also by surprise. Shoelace, not quite the touch he was looking for.
They had a teammate available. Star, I don't think, was necessarily expecting that ball. Usually in that position, you kind of want to lob it a little bit further down the field rather than towards the middle, because that's generally where the opposition is going to be waiting for that ball. And as you can see, to great effect for Cleveland, they'll just say thank you very much and take a 2-0 advantage in this game number 3. And for as back and forth as this series has been throughout the first 2 games, well, Cleveland's kind of had their edge a little bit in terms of the beginning of game number 3, but Smooth and Kansas City finally being able to piece things together. They get a nice dunk on the 6-yard line, catching the defense for Cleveland completely really out of position and out of boost, so they can't really address anything on the goal line, and they'll get their first one back.
Yeah, the boost was the big thing there on that play. 2 players on their near post from both Cage and Sean. Both of them had niche, so it was going to be a tough spot for them either which way. And of course, KCC is going to capitalize on it every day of the week. Still got one more to go, but if there's any team that can make it happen, it's got to be KCC. Smooth's going to find this one central, and Shoelace is taking his patient time looking for the challenge. He's not going to find it though, as Cleveland has done well connecting the midfield. Not really give their opponents a whole lot of space at finding a challenge. The big thing is when KCC does find a challenge, they do tend to win it out pretty cleanly. That's case in point right there. Star almost finds the shot, just turned away.
Dialing up the physical intensity. You can see a couple attacks die out because the third man gets demoed, and so the next person up to respond to that ball ends up being a little bit too far away, and then the opposite team can take advantage of that space. Now Cleveland waiting for Kansas City to send the ball their way. They haven't really been able to kind of possess things through the midfield. It's been a little bit of a throw to the backboard, and then eventually they'll figure things out from there. And at this point, it's just back and forth between the back wall and the midfield line for Cleveland, trying to break down this defense. Eventually, they'll get two players to address the same ball on the side of the Kansas City defense, but they still can't really force it into a scoreable area. Cajunator gets beat out by Smooth, and they'll send it down the length of the field, trying to jumpstart the counterattack opportunity for Kansas City. Goes towards the half wall for Star. Solus will address. Now it's Star back down. They're gonna have to try and beat two players, but it's not really going to go through for them. Instead, it'll roll up the wall. Smooth in for Solus. It's stopped on the goal line by Sean, and out from the corner, Cleveland stands tall.
I mean, that was an absolutely ridiculous save to make for Sean. And now another one, as that's turned away by Cage, but the follow-up is going to go through. We got Caribou who's going to find this goal, if I'm not mistaken, off the touch from Cage. Smooth to turn it away, but Caribou in a fantastic position, and that's been the name of the game for Caribou. We saw it with that second goal from the Cards. He was in position, ready to punish off a mistouch. Exactly what's happened here, although this one wasn't a mistouch per se, maybe a forced error, I'd like to call it. Either way, deja vu, don't you think? Game number 2, I feel like it went exactly this way.
And you had great saves on both ends, and then somehow it's just a goal that both players can't really get to, so it ends up being just something that they have to watch go in the back of their net. A little bit anticlimactic, I think, off of the defensive stance that we had seen from both of these teams. But Kansas City gonna have another opportunity to dunk this one in, and Smooth is able to get it underneath the crossbar, coming all the way up. Bring it back within one, and we again see that demolition occur off screen. So Sean having to respawn, not able to get there in time with boost, leads to an opening that Kansas City is able to exploit.
A really small window, but glad that KCC was able to find that small window and make the most of it. Either way, they still got a mile to travel here and only a minute left to do so here in game number 3. This battle for match point is only going to heat up in the closing seconds of regulation. I think KCC's ready to bring the heat right now. It's going to be Caribou, though. It's another shot turned away. Shoelace gets it wide. Stars there, but no boost, as he's going to have to get a hopeful 50 in an attempt to get Smooth involved. Yeah, Smooth midfield once again, potentially looking for Shoelace to take over. And there's some great speed right now by KCC, but not able to get it done. The shot is not there, Sean. It has been an absolutely crazy couple of seconds, but Cleveland still only has this one goal.
They got to be careful not to give something up in the waning seconds of game number 3. Sean trying to send that ball even further into the zone. Kansas City able to hold it up at the midfield line, and they've got a chance. They've got two players with boost. Caribou's going to try and get it over one, put this ball into the dirt. Star cannot recover in time. So Cleveland, after going down 1-0 into this series, has now responded with 2 games in a row. And like you said, they now find themselves on series point.
You got to give the flowers to Caribou in this game, Pi. I mean, he was in position more often than not multiple times this game. Found mistouches and forced errors from KCC and capitalized every single day of the week for them. Caribou with a handful of shots to his name and also the most goals out of anyone else besides Smooth. So just goes to show you what this player is capable of, and dare I say might be a little bit of an underrated player. But I don't know. Maybe some might disagree with me. Nevertheless, KCC, big road to walk in the next couple of games here. Staring down the barrel of a match point, Pie. Do you think they have what it takes to make this comeback?
Well, I'd say you look at the advanced stats at the bottom, and for Cleveland, it's a little bit closer than it was, but they now hold the advantage in both possession and field domination. So it's not necessarily as close of a game as you might think, especially with the speed differential. Now you're talking decimal places between these two teams. So not only has Cleveland either slowed down Kansas City enough to match up with them or increased their speed to become level with them as well, they're getting the better opportunities and they're executing better on the offensive end. So when it comes down to what Kansas City needs to do, I think they need to go back to what brought themselves success in game number one and maybe incorporate a little bit more of that physical play style, because when they play fast enough, they're able to take advantage of the space where those demos can shine.
Right then, we head to Neo Tokyo, where dreams come to live or they come to die. Either which way, KCC is hoping against the former, but they're already going to be starting off in a very tough spot here, with the Cards winning a big kickoff and able to get one on target right off the rip. Sean's going to be lurking around on the right-hand side, looking for a follow-off the touch from Cagenator. Caribou next up to the batting play, but he's got no boost. And this is about as great a start as you can get if you're Cleveland Pie. I mean, they're coming out guns blazing.
Coming away empty is going to be the big factor, I think, for Cleveland, as well as that ball almost finds its way into their net. They got to be a little bit careful. It seems like running a little bit of a glass cannon in terms of their offensive capability. Yeah, it's brought them some success, but a little bit of tight, tense moments on the defensive end as well. Sean from the far side wall. A couple players with no boost on the side of Kansas City. They've done a little bit well for themselves, but it's behind everybody on the defensive end, pushing it off of the post. It will only hit the woodwork, and the ping reverberates throughout Neo Tokyo. And again, the Cards come up empty. A little bit of a dangerous time on defense for Kansas City. It's a 2v1 opportunity as Cagenator goes the other way, but Smooth able to slow things down just a little bit, buy a little bit more time. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough, as Souls still finding themselves in an awkward position in net.
Yeah, Shoeless took a gamble there, was hoping that one would be shot top ends over towards kind of the middle of the net, and to his dismay, it's gone behind him. And you can't really fault him for that, because he was trying to cover the most, I want to say, straightforward angle, but I mean, that's just fantastic placement. You literally could not ask for a better shot if you're the Cleveland Cards, and now they've got, for the third time in a row, the first goal in a game, which has proven time and time again to be the most impactful goal. Scar's got no boost, neither does Smooth, but is able to pick up that corner. He's going to need a whole lot of that right now, but Cage is dicing up the defense. Star pokes it wide for the time being, but you can't help but worry about KCC, how much they've been stuck on the defense here in game number 4, Pi.
Definitely not a whole lot of what you would have expected from this Kansas City squad compared to what we saw from them in game number 1. Hasn't really been the same in terms of their overall play style. They've been there, they've been competitive, you know, their losses have been by 1 and 2 goals. Just haven't really been able to kind of dominate the pace of play like we saw from them in the opening game. Really haven't been able to kind of establish that overall possessive style, that speed differential kind of carry through for them. And just a rocket of a shot comes through off of Caribou. It looks like they might have had a little bit of help. I'm not sure if it was the demo or maybe a little bit of a bump as well, but Caribou just gets a whole lot of that one. Nobody in defense for Kansas City able to respond. So this is where things get a little bit tough, I think, for the Carnage, because now you're staring down a deficit and you've only got half the game to go.
Yeah, this is going to take a monster comeback, and they've been relatively silent. We've had a couple of goals in game number 3, but really nothing worth writing home about. At least, well, this is going to be a whole nother situation inside the box. And somehow, KCC not able to get that one done. Star is in a spot. Not quite the spot he wanted to be in. And Caribou once again. A second shot, a second goal for this player.
It's a little bit awkward because you can stare down the defense and they're doing all of the work for you, carrying the ball directly into their own net, and you're just happy to sit back and let them do their own kind of thing. But hey, if you're on the side of the Cleveland Cards, that's something you'll look at and you'll say, hey, we'll take that every day of the week. But if you turn your attention to Kansas City, well, I think that's a little bit less than ideal in terms of what you'd be looking at overall. Star had a little bit of an opportunity, and it strikes the post on its way out. So it was very close of a backboard read. They're going to have to get it over Cagenator, but again, nobody really available on the backside to smash that ball into the net. It would have been there, but the spacing just hasn't been what it needs to be since game number 1 for this team.
It's a really tough ball to commit to there, because it looks like it might just be above the lip of the crossbar, to the point where if you were to take a potential challenge, it might just go to the roof and then some. Now it looks like Cleveland Cards are playing with their feet. I mean, what is that touch from Cage? Gotta take a moment to appreciate that one, as he uses a pseudo wave dash sort of thing to get that one central. Now Smooth turned away. A great touch by Caribou. once again, he's been undeniably one of the more impactful players in Game 3, and now here in Game 4, he's come up with the majority of the goals for the Cleveland Cards. You can't really say enough good things about him. I mean, his positioning's been there, the shooting's been there. That's all you can ask for, and now they're running away with game number 4 Pi.
It's one of the impressive things as well when you get into this level of Rocket League. You have those uncontested doubles off of the backboard, but at this level, you understand what angle they're going to be going for and roughly the area of where the ball is going to be. So even those sharp angle doubles that we see kind of go in at lower levels, these players have really seen it all, and they're kind of able to adjust for that as well on the side of this Cleveland defense in particular. And for Kansas City, well, might just be running out of time. 30 seconds to go and a 3-goal lead for Cleveland. If they get one on the board, you might be able to start talking a little bit of a different tune, but right now, Caribou is just everywhere in the net and keeping the ball out.
Yeah, I doubt KCC finds anything going their way in the next 15 seconds. It is done and dusted for the Cleveland Cards. Really tough start in game number 1. I mean, had a lot of us thinking that KCC were going to find a big way to run away with it. But man, I ate my words. My initial prediction, 3-1 in favor of KCC. I mean, I really could not have been more wrong. I'm going to say it. Shoelace and Smooth, although they did connect a bunch in game number 1, were not able to replicate a whole lot. Open the door for Cleveland Cards this series, and man, they took advantage.
And what looked so promising for Kansas City, they're finally going to get themselves on the board in this game, so they will have a goal at least in every single contest of this series, but they're going to send it right back, and Cajunator is going to make it a 3-goal lead once again. So after all things are said and done, after it's all done and dusted, what was a really great start for the Carnage just could not continue, and Cleveland, in rousing fashion, takes 3 games in a row off of this Kansas City team, and en route to their first series victory of the season. Could be even more to come when we talk about how they can contribute and continue this kind of run throughout the remainder of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the regular season, not quite the start that KCC would have liked for sure, especially with a team who's got 2 Ramen Bowl champions on it from a couple of seasons ago. They would have liked to start off a little bit hot, but you can never count out Smooth and Shoelace. And I think once Star gets more integrated with this roster, this team's going to go very, very far, make a potentially deep run here in the Ramen Bowl regular season and into the playoffs. But that's enough of the Ramen Bowl action for now, chat. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's going to be some Linguini League to get you all started. So, see you in a little bit.